In this video, I'm going to show you how to sand out a scratch in a Corian solid surface countertop. I purchased the sanding kit on Amazon. It comes with a bunch of sandpapers, a sanding block, although I did cut my own wood sanding block because it's much smaller and the scratch we are working with is smaller. I also have some Scotch-Brite pads. I'll put all of those links in the description below. Let's get started. Let's make a scratch in the countertop. Keep in mind that you can only remove fine scratches with this technique. If you have deeper scratches, you'll have to use a machine or sander to remove those scratches. We can see the scratch right here on the Corian material. I'm going to take a small wood block. I'm going to cut my first piece of 150 grit sandpaper. I'm going to cut it to fit this block and just fold it right up and around there. So I'm going to start by staying right over the scratch because this is a coarse grit sandpaper and I want to remove the scratch, but I don't want to go way outside of where the scratch is. So I'm going to stay in really tight and I'm going to do a circular pattern around just this little area. The scratch is gone. Now I need to move to finer grits of sandpaper and I'll show you the next step. After each step, I want you to take a nice rag and you're going to wipe off the old dust because that is 150 grit dust that's on there and we don't want that to contaminate the next finer grit sandpaper that we're going to use. You can clearly see in the picture now that we've dulled down the material in this area where we removed the scratch, and you can see that. I'm going to outline that with this marker. So we want to sand in this area. We're going to move up to 240 grit sandpaper because that's what came in this kit. So you can clearly see where we marked this. This is the area that's been sanded. So now we're going to take 240 grit sandpaper and our sanding block. We'll cut it to fit just like we did on the first sandpaper, and we'll sand in this area. The first grit sandpaper, we went in a circular motion. This time, I want you to go back and forth, but I only want you to go past this little line just a little bit, like outside here, okay? Because we want to keep this sanding dull spot as tight as we can to where the scratch was so that we're not sanding the entire countertop to blend this in. So now we're going to do a straight line pattern. And the reason we're going to do this is you'll know when you finish with the 240 grit sandpaper when the only thing you see is these straight lines. If you see any circular lines in this pattern or this dull area, then you know you've not removed the 150 grit sanding marks. Again, I'm going to mark this outline of where the straight lines are just to give me a better idea of where it was. And then again, we're going to sand out to about here. It's going to go a little bit further than that. And the next grit that comes in this package is 320 grit sandpaper. Now, the last time I did a straight pattern back and forth, this time I'm going to do a circular pattern. When I remove the straight lines, I know I've sanded enough with the 320 grit. Take a look at that. Oh yeah, that's looking really good. I removed all the straight line sanding scratches. Let me wipe this off. Okay, so you can see how big the area is and it's still a little bit dull. Let's do 400 grit sandpaper on this and then we'll move to the Scotch-Brite pad. And that we should be able to blend that into the surrounding area. We did circular pattern the last time, we'll do straight this time. If you use a permanent marker to outline your sanding scratches, make sure you at least sand that mark out with the next following grit. Because if you're not even sanding off the marker, you probably haven't sanded enough. With finer grits, you might have to wipe off your sandpaper. It gets clogged a little bit. You can see how big the area around where the initial scratch is becomes dull and how far out you have to work the area because you always have to go over your last sanding grit. The marker line is almost gone. Let me check that. Yeah, that looks really good. There's no circular sanding marks from the previous grit. You wipe this off. All right, on camera, I hope you can see the outline of this right here. Still a little bit dull, it looks great. The scratch is completely removed. Now we need to blend this area into the surrounding countertop area because that was the original finish. There's the pencil line, and I'll take the Scotch-Brite. We're going to do the circular motion again. Let me wipe that off and see the progress. The pencil line is not removed yet, so you want to see how close we are. That's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to add a little bit of water, just a mist of water, and I'm going to continue with the Scotch-Brite pad. The water helps cut and blend in the material a little bit better. Don't use a ton of water, you don't really need it. Just a little bit, just keep it wet. And I'm using very light pressure here because I'm trying to blend it. If you push down really hard on the Scotch-Brite pad, you end up basically scratching the countertop. Hopefully that's enough. Let me wipe this down and we'll check our progress. All right, I hope you can see that. Looks really good. It's blended in well to the surrounding finish. As I look at it from a sharp angle, I can still see some of the Scotch-Brite marks. I finished using the Scotch-Brite, the maroon Scotch-Brite, and this is what's typically used to finish countertops. But because you're using it by hand, sometimes it doesn't blend in as well as you'd like. So even though this looks really, really good, especially on camera, it looks great. I'm going to use a finer grit Scotch-Brite pad. This is a white Scotch-Brite pad. And again, I'll put the link in the description below. And I'm gonna go over this just by hand, just real lightly, just holding it like this with a little bit of water. And I'm gonna go over that area again and see if I can't fine tune it just a little bit. You can see how big of an area you end up polishing or sanding, if you will, to remove such a small scratch. I mean, the scratch that we had was only, what, a couple inches long, and now we're Scotch-Brite buffing out, you know, a good 18 inches of material. And you can keep going. You can go further and further if you'd like. What you really want to do is just get down at a really sharp angle and look across the material and see if you can blend it in. The more you blend it, the better it looks, because you want to remove the scratches, and we already got the scratches out. But it's really nice when you can get it to blend in with the surrounding material. It's just perfect. Just dry this. Yeah, and that makes a huge difference. That blends it in really nice. And again, it depends on the condition of your surrounding material, but that looks amazing. You can see there's no scratch. Now, of course, I did a big area with that white Scotch-Brite pad, but I was trying to blend it in. And I did a really good job with that. It's really blended in really nice. The scratch is removed, looks great. And here's the finished countertop. If you have any questions, please comment below. I'll be sure to answer. You might have some problems along the way. But this process really works good. Hope this video helps. Thanks for watching.